Hi everyone, this is Ashley Lateki Ellenboss with Skyhouse Herb School and Apothecary, and today we'll be exploring bitters and 3 reasons why bitters may be of benefit to you. So let's first start talking about what are bitters. So bitters are classically understood as plants that are taken usually as a drink or as a tincture or as an aperitif to help stimulate digestion and also detoxification. These herbs are sort of broadly related, but each of them have particular specific activities. So at the very end of our talk, I'll highlight some of my favorite bitter herbs and ways that you can take them. But let's talk a little bit about kind of why bitters are so important and why they're so hated, unfortunately. Well, in a developmentally and also in our evolution, the bitter taste was designed to protect us because a lot of things that contain the bitter taste have poisons in them, and so we can think of bitters as being kind of like, at least the ones that we'll be talking about today are kind of like mild poisons. And so, what our bodies have evolved to do is when we taste bitter, our body goes, oh, yuck, right? And usually we would then spit it out if it were a plant. So you can imagine our ancestors foraging and they would try something and it would taste bitter and then, they would spit it out because, they knew in their mind that bitter was associated with a lot of different potential or probable poisons. So we're not designed to love the taste bitter. However, it is an important taste for us to have in our diet regularly. The bitter flavor comes from a number of different compounds, namely alkaloids and also glycosides. And so there are a number of different reasons why these compounds work in our bodies. But a lot of them do share this very bitter flavor, which again creates that sort of blah reflex. Um, as poisons, or as I would say, sort of gentle poisons in our body, the reason why they work so well as medicines is that they stimulate our digestive function to increase the production of specific enzymes, hydrochloric acid, so that our bodies can break down whatever's coming in. So it's sort of like a high alert. When we taste bitter, our body says, okay, something's coming in, let's make sure we can move it out. And so our digestive function increases, and then our liver function increases. And we know that our liver is responsible for breaking down and metabolizing toxins, as well as many other things like hormones and, our food helps to break down and metabolize our food as well. So the liver plays a really important role in making sure that our body it breaks things down in a way that they become either assimilatable into our body or able to easily move out. So, one thing I want to say about bitters is that while I think most people would benefit from them, we do want to be mindful of the energetics of bitters because there are very, very cooling bitters. And then there are what are called aromatic bitters, which are a little bit warming. So, if in your body you tend to run a little bit on the cold side already, if you have a constitutional propensity towards being more airy or more vata, then you would probably benefit more from taking some of the aromatic bitters, which are a little bit more warming. Whereas if you tend to run really hot, those very cold, very, very strong bitters, those sort of classic bitter remedies we'll talk about, those will be of benefit. So we'll cover those in a little bit. But let's talk about the 3 reasons. Like, what are 3 reasons why you might benefit from taking bitters? Well, one reason that I was so surprised when I learned is that we actually have bitter receptor sites throughout our entire body. So most of the times when we think about bitters and taking bitters, we think, oh, our taste buds have bitter receptors. These TR2 receptors are so also we have them throughout our digestive system. We have them in our liver. But did you know that we also have bitter receptors in our heart? We also have bitter receptors in our brain. We have bitter receptors in our pancreas. So we actually have bitter receptors throughout our entire body. And it's interesting because why do we have bitter receptors in our heart? Like, what's the reason for that? Well, we don't know exactly why, but we do know that these receptors actually affect smooth muscle tissue contraction, and they actually improve cardiac functioning. So, if we again think about our ancestors, foraging. I know my grandparents and my great grandparents, they in the springtime would forage dandelion greens, which are very, very bitter. And so, that was bitter was a part of their diet because a lot of the wild spring greens have bitter compounds. So, when we think about our bodies and sort of the stimulation that our bodies need, just like we need exercise for our muscles and our blood flow, we also need stimulation from different tastes, and we need to stimulate different receptor sites. So, in the West, we have a diet that is very, very heavily based on sweet, and we like sweet, we like spicy, we like sour a little bit, we like that fat flavor, or umami, I think it is. But not a lot of us really seek out bitter, but we should, because it does have an effect on brain and mood and heart functioning. So that is actually, that's a number of reasons, but I would sort of couch those all together in saying that our whole body benefits from taking bitters in, because we get the stimulation in these different organs that we would not get otherwise, and that improves overall functioning of our body systems. The second reason why we should take bitters is for our digestive improvements. And so, especially as we head into maybe a season where you're going to be more prone to eating more, like the holidays, you might find that taking bitters before your meals will actually help you not only curb your tendency to overeat, but also will help improve your digestive function and your ability to break down those foods. And so, if you have issues like sluggish digestion, if you have reflux, bloating, or gas after eating, if you feel like your food just sort of sits in your stomach after you eat, it just sort of like is like a rock in your belly, those are all signs that you probably would benefit from some increase in digestive secretions. And so bitters will do that for your body. So taking a little bit of bitters before each meal is really the ideal way to kickstart digestion and really get improvement in your overall digestive functioning and also liver function. And then the third reason, which may come as a surprise, is that if you are a happy person, taking bitters will actually help you save money. So there was a study that was done. It was published in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology in 2016. And they took happy and unhappy people and they gave them a bitter tasting drink. And then they asked them a bunch of questions, and then they followed their shopping behavior. And so what they found was that when a happy person drank a little bit of bitters, the taste was actually sort of stunned them, and it made them a little bit more worried and anxious about spending money, and so they ended up spending less money and were more interested in putting money into savings. However, for the unhappy people, when they took a taste of something bitter, they were actually more likely to spend more money. So this is an important thing to think about when if you're considering taking bitters, and especially before you go holiday shopping, is what kind of mood are you in? And this isn't to say that that taking bitters is going to make you it's not going to make you unhappy, but one of the things that it will do is it'll make you more cautious. Again, remember, that's part of this reflexive action, is that bitters make us sort of wake up and say, okay, let me assess my environment. Is there something dangerous? And so it will change your behavior thereafter. So if you are maybe a more impulsive type person, or you're looking to sort of draw in your boundaries a little bit, then taking bitter herbs, whether you're happy or unhappy, will make you more aware of your situation around you. However, if you are in an unhappy state, taking bitters will actually cause you to seek out more pleasurable activities. So it can actually give you a little bit of a inhibition decrease. So you may be more likely to seek out things that would change your mood into one of being happy after taking bitters. So it's kind of an interesting thing to consider, and a really fun fact in terms of shopping versus spending, or shopping versus saving. So now let's talk about herbs and which herbs and how to take bitters. So there are a number of really wonderful companies out there that make pre-made bitters, and most of these are done in a very balanced way. So they include both these very strong cooling bitters and then these warming aromatic bitters, which balance out the whole blend. Some of my favorite bitters that you can buy ready made are made by herbalists and alchemists. They make really wonderful, they have a few different bitters blends, so you can look at them and just see which one might be better suited to you. And then also Urban Moonshine. They make a number of different bitters varieties as well. And so let's talk about the herbs. So that way, when you're thinking about bitters, you might be able to think about, okay, well, this is the one I want to make sure I have, and this is the one I want, that's, maybe not as important on my list. So bitters can be kind of classically categorized into true or pure bitters. Then we have aromatic bitters, and then we can have our Nervine bitters. And so it's nice to have one of each, one from each category, if you're going to be blending your own herbal formulation. So our pure bitters, these are ones that are just kind of solely bitter. Of course, they have other actions, but you can consider them to be pure bitters in the most basic sense. Would be herbs like dandelion root is a pure bitter, and gentian root is a pure bitter. It's a very, very strong one. Andrographis is a very strong pure bitter, but I really like the first two. So I would recommend finding a bitter that has either or both gentian and dandelion. And the roots are the part used for these ones in particular. Then you have your aromatic bitters. Aromatic bitters, unlike your basic bitters, are warming. And they also have this carminative action, which means they also help to warm and increase digestive functioning. While the pure bitters do that as well, you can kind of think about, pure bitters sort of stimulate secretion and stimulate the liver. And the aromatic bitters are more sort of like stoking the digestive fire. And they tend to have, they have a little bit more of this diffusive warming effect in the body. So these are herbs like chamomile flowers. Angelica is a really nice one. Angelica archangelica, or Dong Quai, the Chinese angelica. Both of those are really nice carminative or aromatic bitters. Wormwood is also a really nice bitter you can add in this category. And wormwood is very strong. One of the interesting things I learned from Danny O'Raw, who is an Irish herbalist, he said that he actually tracked out and made this beautiful map of all of the different bitter receptors in the body. And there's like, hundreds of them. I think there's like over 200 bitter receptors in the body, and they're found in all of these different organs. And then he took all of the bitter receptors along the top line, and then he took all of the bitter herbs on a sidebar, and then he studied to see which bitters plugged which receptors in different parts of the body. And then you could start to see which herbs would have an effect. Like, it makes sense that motherwort as a bitter has a lot of activity in the receptors found in the cardiac muscles, so in the heart. We know that it's also really good for heart palpitations. But what he found was that wormwood plugged the most receptors across the board, across the various different organ systems. So if you're looking for, I would call it kind of like a complete bitter. Wormwood has both that pure bitter, it has an aromatic qualities, and it's going to plug the most number of receptors. Now, wormwood is strong, so I wouldn't use it on its own unless you're working with a clinical herbalist. I would temper it with other things because it can have this sort of purging effect, this sort of flushing effect of the liver and the gallbladder, which if you have liver stagnation or congestion, it can be really helpful. But if you're not sure, better to blend it with other things like chamomile or angelica. And then the third category we have are Nervine are Nervine Bitters. So these are herbs that have an effect on relaxing the nervous system. And these can be really nice to add to your bitters blend as well. So these would include herbs like blue vervain or Verbena hastata, skullcap, Scutellaria lateriflora is a really nice one you could add in here, and also hops, Humulus lupulus. Those are both those three would be considered to be nervine relaxants. And so you can combine those together in whatever way you please, or you can seek out a formula that has these herbs in it. And really, again, as I mentioned, for digestion, really the best time to take herbs, our bitter herbs, is right before a meal. But you can also take it after a meal. And so sometimes what I like to do is after a meal, I'll pour myself some sparkling water. And then I have a bitters blend that I made for myself that I added some lavender tincture that I made from my garden. And lavender is another bitter, and it's an aromatic bitter, but it's got such a lovely taste. So I'll add that bitter, maybe like a squirt or two of the bitters blend into a large glass of sparkling water, and then I'll drink that after a meal. And I found that that's really just helpful and relaxing. The other thing about bitters is that it is opposite or antagonistic to sweet. So if you find that after a meal you really want something sweet and you're trying to help curb your sweet tooth, then I could say this would be your fourth reason, fourth reason why you might want to take bitters, is because it will help you, it'll help block your craving for sweets. So if you drink that after a meal, you're going to be less likely to overindulge in sweet treats. So those are some of the reasons why bitters might be of benefit for you, and some of my favorite bitter herbs. So let me know if you've taken bitters. I'd love to hear your stories. If you have your favorite bitters blend that you swear by, maybe you even make your own bitters blend. And if so, please enter that, add that into the comments section with a link. Let us know how we can find your bitters blend. And yeah, if there's any other recipes you have for using blood bitters, I'd also love to hear that. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.